thinking that I'm not going to notice. But you know what it means, of course, that then we've got to cancel the card and change all the things that come out of it.
You can just suspend your cards these days, though.
Yes, but I definitely have to cancel that because this happened to me about 2 months ago as well. And they say that once they've already got your card, then
wow.
Yeah.
Well, that is not good at all. Good morning, everyone watching. We're talking about having our cards fraud on our credit cards and how tragic it is and annoying when that happens.
Yeah. Yes, and good morning. I'm just seeing if we can stop that big screen.
Yep. I'm sure one of the girls can stop it, so it'll just be off. Stop sharing the screen. We'll play it again. Either way. I feel like I need to be doing some of these.
I'm just sending a message. Melon says she'll just finish the song. That's lovely. And we could enjoy that. So Jenny, lovely to see you and your beautiful earrings. How
good. I know. I'm rocking earrings this week. I've decided it's been too long and I need some earrings.
Well, that's wonderful. And you have a new puppy.
I do have a new puppy and she is so adorable. She's sitting under my feet at the moment, which is kind of the perfect place for her during the day. She's a terror though. She's like, she's, as you know, she's teething and she's 9 weeks. So she's trying to chew everything, but she's so good. She's just such a good little puppy though. She's responding really well, starting to learn the rules and kind of where she can and can't go. And it's been really good. It's just nice to have a dog in the house.
Yes, for sure. Well, our puppy's now 7 months and I just have to say it's hell. Yes, much of the time she's great and she's been, she's doing really well with her training and all of that, but boy.
Yeah, we've had some challenges like waking up in the middle of the night to things that you don't want to see in your room in the middle of the night going, oh my gosh, that's tomorrow's problem, I think. But you can't be. So it's been a fun 24 hours with her. But then during the day, she just, she goes crazy in the morning. She goes crazy at night. And during the day, she's like happy as Larry to chew on something. And
that's so good. So Toby's actually office dog. So she hangs out with me in the day. Yeah. And she has pooped in that corner before without me even knowing. I'm on a Zoom with a client and they're watching it going on. And another time I wheel my chair back and she'd poop right behind me and it went through my wheels. So there has been some beautiful moments in the
I love it. The wonders of new family members. But isn't it it's so nice to have an office dog like for me, having her sitting with me during the day, keeps my feet warm, or she just comes and says hello to me, and it's just nice when you're working all day in your office. So I love it.
Yeah, it's so lovely. And Clover, my daughter whose dog it is, she normally gets home around 4 and she comes straight in and grabs puppy, and then I'm like, phew. No, I'm not like, I'm like, phew. Okay, great.
No, I'm a little bit protective of my puppy. I feel like I feel sorry for my family. They're not going to get her.
One good thing I have to say is it's been making me take breaks for the last few months.
It's true. Yeah.
We go off into the park, quick little pee and a run around, and
I love it.
I'm really enjoying that part of it, which is great.
No, that is. It's true.
She's adorable. So that beautiful what's the word? Unsomething love that
unconditional love.
Yes, that's the word, which is really special. Special.
I love these new words we're coming up with this week.
So, I would like to hear how your reconciliation week has been.
It's been really good. I've actually had a couple of really phenomenal events this week with the work that I'm doing with my clients. We had Queensland government they've actually just stopped funding, but an MOU with the Queensland Resource Council for Indigenous participation. So we had an employment forum this Wednesday, which was amazing, listening to the way businesses are engaging with and wanting to build their Indigenous engagement strategies. We had the QRC Indigenous Awards ceremony. The awards were for last year, but with COVID, we didn't get an in-person event. So they presented those this Wednesday. And then I've just had some really great conversations. I think off the back of our conversation last week around what it is and why we should be talking about it and the importance of all of us kind of sharing this story. It's been a really great reconciliation week. And what about you?
I've had a great week. And then last night I went to watch Bangara, the dance theatre company, which was just extraordinary and just such a beautiful timing, obviously, for that. And I absolutely loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't sleep for a long time. There's just so many things that were coming up for me, and it makes me want to read. I really need to start doing some reading and some watching and some more thinking. So I feel like this week, thanks to you starting with that last Friday, has been a good eye-opener. And I'm starting on a new journey of awareness. And one thing I was thinking about while I was watching it last night is that obviously my husband and I are both Kiwis, so we come with our own experience of
course,
et cetera. But what I've learned mostly has been through my daughter being at school here. And at primary school, they had lots of amazing experiences to get involved with things, but still very, very little. So I'm thinking, what about just average Australians that don't have the opportunity or the drive or desire to learn and understand more? What those kids aren't getting much more than what they're getting at school, are they?
No, that's going to be that's why the education will never stop, and it's a continuing conversation. And I had a conversation with some people yesterday, and my view of that is that there's no point in judging or looking negatively on people who don't know. Yes, there's libraries and they could go look, but often they don't know that they should look. And it's the awareness of needing to look is something that is born out of your environment and where you are. So if you're not getting that and you're not having that engagement, well, then it's really hard for you to know that you should be looking at something. I mean, I've got colleagues of mine who've grown up with no, Indigenous people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in their world at all. And so they don't know what they should ask, what they should look for, how that works. So I think it's about being open to have a conversation. Don't judge anybody if they don't know. There's the puppy. Don't judge anybody, and just actually, be open and engaging and have great conversations. And then we share that story and it changes over time. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's just such a beautiful way of looking at it, that we can't judge, because at the end of the day, we don't know what we don't know. Exactly. So we can just do our best, and when the time is right, start exploring and start delving into.
That's exactly right.
Finding out more, and so and embrace that when that opportunity shows itself. And
but very good. We're talking about business models, aren't we?
I'm really excited about that. So let's start on that topic, because it's a big one and it's a good one.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. First of all, what is a business model? That's a good place to start.
It's such a good question. And I love this question as a business consultant, because people come with me with an idea of what their business model should look like. And I look at the business model as part of, as the kind of the way that you approach your business. And I guess I have a fairly organic view of it. It's not a really structured view of the world, but we know that from listening to me for the last 6 months, is that when we're looking at the way that you run your business. So your business model is essentially how you run your business. How do you approach your clients? How do you engage them? How do you actually earn money? How do you exchange that value? So the business model covers a whole range of things. And it comes from the structure of your business, so how it's set up, to the way that you actually engage with your clients and the customer journey that you create, or the pathway you create for them. And it even is and for me, part of the business model is the language that you use to engage your client, because your language creates the culture and creates the framework and that scaffolding that brings everything together. It's actually, you can have great structure, you can have great processes, but if they're not connected through a common language and a common framework of something, then you just have lots of moving parts. And I think that's where a lot of small businesses get into trouble, because we need to have a structure. I'm going to be the CEO, I'll have an assistant, then I'll have some people. Oh, wait, I'm all of those people. So how do you work that out? So for me, a business model is essentially the way you do business, how your business is structured, the framework, and how you actually create that revenue exchange.
I love it. And I totally agree with you. It can be so disjointed. And we've always got to go back to where so many of us start, is that it might be that we've invented something that we think is amazing and the world needs, or that we find that we're really good at something, so we just turn that into a business, or a hobby that we enjoy doing that just grows and it surprises us. There's just so many different ways that can evolve from, turn it into a business, but we have no plan, no structure, no model for where we want to go. So Jenni, would you recommend that you work out your business model, if you could, prior to actually even getting going? Or when, I'm assuming you'll probably say to me, any time's a good time to do your business model, and the time is now. But yeah, talk to me a bit about that.
It's a really great question, but I guess it really depends on how you approach your overall world. If you're someone who's very organic and flexible and likes to kind of be creative in their approach, as long as you're delivering consistency to your clients, your business model can come out of that initial piece. And a really great example, and I'm hoping she's going to be okay that I'm using this, is Nicolette. She's one of our amazing colleagues and friends, and one of my clients. And she's a intuitive healer. And so how do you describe to somebody what a healer is, the type of work she does? And so what we worked with her, and she's been doing that work for years. But I said to her is, what does that look like? How do you deliver your service? How does that look like for a client? And we actually worked out there were 4 or 5 core pillars in the way that she delivers her business. So she's now created a business model that actually she can use to translate her world to someone who doesn't understand the world. So the business model is actually also bridging the gap, because it's providing a framework and a language that she can use. So she's taken some years delivering her work, being successful, and then going, hang on, what does that mean for someone who isn't in my space? So her business model is fallen out of a discussion of how do we bridge the gap. So that's a really good example of someone who is organic and is kind of free-flowing in the way they run their business. But now with this grounded model, she can discuss it with anybody and talk to anybody about what she does and bring them into her world. So that's an example of that organic space. If you're doing something like a product delivery and a more structured something that is like a widget, if you like, you're selling a widget of some form, then a business model up front is really important, because that determines your channel, that determines how you're selling, it determines your pricing model, and a whole lot of other issues that fall out of that, because you're selling an actual product. And so you need to have real clarity around where you're starting, what you need to do, and how you deliver it to your client. So I think it depends on the person, the type of service or product you're offering, and also where you are in that journey, in your own journey, in terms of having clarity about what it is you're doing.
So what would you recommend for people that wanted to start on figuring it out for themselves, even to begin? Where and how do you do that? Obviously, you sit down with a notebook and go, right, let's go.
Actually, I start with a conversation. I mean, you and I are similar. We like to have a notebook and a pen everywhere, because it's how our brain kind of connects the words to our, to our unconscious, I think, or subconscious. But for me, it's actually starting a conversation to say, so tell me about your business. Tell me what it is you do. What are you trying to achieve with your business? What does it look like? So asking those questions of if I was going to describe the business, what would it look like? Well, I'm a product selling business. I sell widgets to people all around the world. We have a drop ship arrangement. I sometimes use wholesalers, but and we talk through the business. So we actually see on a piece of paper, or just in our heads or on a whiteboard, all the moving parts in the business. And once you see all the moving parts in the business, you can actually start to see how the scaffolding that needs to sit around them to create that throughput, to create the processes. So if I'd ask somebody about processes, they go, what? I don't get it. But if we take a step back and just look at all the parts of the business first, the process and the business model and the way that you approach it actually falls out of a really deep understanding of the moving parts of your business. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have a workman here, and every time he walks past, yeah, so excuse me about that. Let me give her another little distraction. So what's interesting is the way that you talk about that is almost the way that I talk about the beginning of writing your business vision. So that's been exciting, is like seeing those crossover moments. Now he's going through with a ladder. Toby, I know it's exciting.
So good.
And writing of the business vision, I always think that you can use it in so many different ways. Turn it into Instagram bio, turn it, evolve from that into your About Us page, et cetera, et cetera. But I love that the process with your part of it is that then taking it through to really understanding what it is that we're actually doing. And I know when I did the process with you as part of our beautiful retreat, that was really interesting, because there was parts of my process that I wasn't even super conscious of. They just kind of happened, but finding a way for it to all come together was really vital.
I think that's a really key piece, and thank you for raising that. I think around the understanding of what you do, because particularly when you do something that you love or you're passionate about, and particularly when it's a consulting service like you and I provide, although you have a very structured process and supporting model that covers the delivery of content. But when we're doing consulting work, there's so many things that we do that we don't actually know that we do. And so for a business model, it's about creating consistency in your business. And it's also about creating an opportunity for you to risk manage. So I look at a business model as a way to risk manage your business. If you understand all the different moving parts in the business, then it means that you can identify where the risks in the business are, but also it allows you to see where you can step away from those elements, and actually elevate yourself from being that employee operator to an operator owner. And then eventually, if you desire, into that owner status where you see the moving parts, and your job is actually just to make sure that those moving parts work and not to actually be engaged in it. But you can't do that if you don't know what those moving parts are. And I think that's where business models and that framework becomes really important. I know what my channels are. I know what my customers are. I know what my clear vision and why are. I know what my product is. I know what my USP is, or my unique selling proposition. I know how I'm delivering it. I know what my pricing model is. So when you look at all those pieces, it actually creates I see it in a kind of a circular motion. I see it in kind of a holistic approach where it's like, I guess, a soccer ball. It's all those pieces of a soccer ball, and we have clarity of all those different pieces. And once we do, we have this really strong structure that can be moved around, but it's always going to be the same.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's so well said, particularly with those little hexagons, or are they pentagons? I'm not sure.
I think but that's my vision of what it looks like. Because if you think about it, those pieces, and it's the same with you when you're doing your model around, when you're doing your vision statements and when you're doing content and your branding piece, the branding is the same scaffolding. It's just a mini version of that. You have to have all those different elements of your branding to be a whole brand in itself. If you have just a really great logo and no clear message, or a great color scheme but no logo, or you have only some of those parts, you may get engagement. But when you have that whole picture sorted out, which is what you do with your clients, and they have clarity around that whole piece, you actually get greater engagement, and it amplifies the value, because you can now actually leverage off each of those different parts.
Absolutely. And using that soccer ball analogy, so whether it's branding, whether it's structure or the processes, whatever it is, whether it's the delivery, or I'm always a big believer, as I know you are, is that always constantly evolving your business where it needs to go. So as the soccer ball, you can easily take one of those hexagons out and replace it with a different piece. So It's like that patchwork quilt, isn't it?
Exactly.
Not like one giant piece of fabric that if it gets a cut in it, it can't be, it's not perfect anymore. But having all those different hexagons, putting it all together is great. And
I think that's why COVID hit a lot of people so hard last year, because people who had just been running their business in that kind of organic approach with no real conscious awareness of each of the moving parts of their business, they weren't able to actually understand what something like COVID was how they were going to be impacted by it. So if you're, as a consultant, I have a range of ways that I can deliver my work. But if I have a very fixed notion of saying, I only deliver my model in this way because this is the best version, if something comes at me, then I go, oh, hang on, I've completely been disrupted. But if I also know that there are 5 key elements to my delivery process, and that one piece is actually just the face-to-face or online model, 4 of those other moving parts can still continue to work. I just have to, as you've said, switch out the hexagon, or from the face-to-face or to the Zoom. And I know that's what you do with your business. You were very clear about what your processes, what your systems, and the structure of your business. So it allowed you to swap out that delivery methodology and not actually even skip a beat in your business.
Yeah, and that was really, really interesting through COVID for so many people. And of course, COVID's obviously still going on. I'm seeing intriguing things coming out of Victoria, where some people have gone straight back into that horror, that slump, that can't get out of my jammies, and my whole business is, fallen apart, as opposed to some of them which are doing just got to do another pivot, just going to do some more online, do some more client attraction, et cetera, and change. Obviously very much of a different scenario if your business is solely based on only clientele locally, but for those with a business that can appeal to, nationally or internationally, there are still amazing opportunities out there. So it's intriguing, isn't it?
And I think it's really important, and this goes back to that model and framework piece. And as I said, looking at language, looking at the branding, all those elements form part of your business model. And for me particularly, you know, I spend a lot of time in those workshops that we do at the mastermind around language and clarity around your message and what's your vision and what's your values and all that piece, because that becomes like a core part of your structure and your model. But if you actually take a step back and say, okay, let me map out my whole model, my whole business from every aspect of the business. So from my customer journey, from my invoicing, from my delivery methodology, all those different elements of your business, if you map those out, then you actually can see where it is, where you can pivot and where you can't. And a lot of people don't take that time because it seems a little difficult, because people put up business model canvases and all the different kind of and lean business models and this 25-page business model template that or the business plan template that you can pull off the government websites. And it's just overwhelming. Whereas it can be so simple by just saying, write down on a piece of paper or lots of pieces of paper or post-it notes, all the different things that you do in your business and how you go from A to Z. And once you do that, that's essentially your business model. And it allows you to say, well, what's not working in my business? My invoicing isn't getting through. Okay, well, let me look at that piece of the work and fix it. And for delivery, that's the piece we all get to think that I didn't pivot as quickly as you did, I have to say, when I started the business. I just love face-to-face. But having spent so much time on Zoom and Teams in the last year, I know that we can get the same outcome and the same benefit through this medium as I can face-to-face, even in a Teams environment, with breakout rooms, with the different technology, with, you know, I use Microsoft Whiteboard, which I love because I can draw and scribble and write text, and I find it so much easier than the Zoom model. But having those elements around you, you can deliver exactly the same outcome. So it's about us changing our own understanding and our own connection to our business to say, look, you know what, we're about outcomes. How we do it, no one actually cares. Like, no one really cares about how we deliver our work as much as we like to think they do. It's actually what they get at the end, that the value, and they just connect that to the delivery methodology, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I feel like if it's only in person, then you lose a whole lot of opportunity.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And people that can't be there and won't be there because, you know, I think people aren't going to be willing to travel the same as they were before, you know, even when that's available. Because when you think that, okay, so say, for example, there's a workshop in Brisbane, it's 3 days, you need to book accommodation, either drive or fly, whatever it is, that's time out of your business, et cetera, et cetera. There's the expense, you know, all the other expenses on top, food, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. If you compare that to delivering that online, then yes, I still need to take that time out of my business, but during the breaks, I can deal with emails. I'm in my own comfy bed and I don't have all that extra expense on top.
Oh, I completely agree.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting watching going forward how that happens. But for me, for example, I know that the minute I can get back to social media marketing world in the States, I'll be there because I recognize the importance of those connections that you have in the hallways and the amazing moments you have with the speakers, etc. But like I've said once before about Clubhouse, it made me feel like it was similar to those kind of conventions where, you know, you can mosey around. That said, I've spent very little time on Clubhouse of late, but similar kind of an environment, but nothing beats those networking kind of moments. But that said, I've really enjoyed what I've been able to do online with my, you know, furthering my learning and growing, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's super interesting how we approach it all.
I think that when we're talking about business frameworks and models, it's about trying to not complicate it. So as you say, as our word for this year is uncomplify. It's about saying you don't have to create a business structure that works for somebody else. I look at the lean model canvas template because some of my clients really love it. I do not like working with it because it requires us to put everything into very specific boxes. Now, there's value in that for some businesses. But for some people who are more organic and want to actually create more of a holistic work for themselves that works for them, traditional business models are not going to work. And that's okay. And I think what the last 12 months or 18 months people have found is we can create our own business model and our own structure and own frameworks that suits our lifestyle like you have, that suits my lifestyle like I have. And then we can create the business and still get success and still grow and have all the same benefits, but we just do it in a way that suits us and we don't worry about that it's not like somebody else. And in fact,
I love that. I love it.
What the value is.
So a few years ago, I went to a workshop on, what is it? The lean business canvas. I can't remember even the order that it goes in. And it was this evening thing to do with a women in business thing. And it was quite fascinating. We all had these giant pieces of paper and writing it all out and I folded the paper up at the end, came home, and then I never opened the piece of paper again. So I'd learned things along the way, but then I didn't action anything. So I think that's something to talk to you about is what's your advice for people once they've looked at and I love the way you say from A to Z, write down every single thing that you do in your business or every single way that your business operates. That's great. And then what happens when you see, for example, that your invoicing isn't good, or like me, a little problem is that I haven't been following up on discovery calls, for example. So, I see those gaps and I see it with my clients, these gaps. What's your best way of getting people taking action and actually doing something about it?
It's a great question. And it's funny, even when you're describing that, my brain seems like a crossword puzzle for your business plan. So it becomes, where the intersections are. So customers go A to Z, and then the invoicing process might come down from the top to bottom.
That's
and
exactly how I see it too.
It's like a crossword. So the key thing is firstly look at the intersections. So the first thing you want to do is say, how well are the intersections working between invoicing and customer, discovery calls and customers and follow-ups? And so first thing is look at the intersections because you've mapped out the process. The process is that, at the moment, let's not worry about that. There's probably going to be between 5 and 8 intersections in your business that are really critical for its success. So the first thing we do is we look at those intersections and say, how are they working? If they're working well, leave it alone. If they're not, then that goes on to, and going back to the way that I prioritize, I use the Eisenhower Matrix or my Do First Matrix. That goes into that important, urgent, or important schedule piece. So I would take that as a little project and say, these are the 3 or 4 things where I now see that there are gaps. So then you've actually looked at your business model, you've identified the potential areas of improvement or where there's a significant gap. And then you actually take that out of the business plan and say, what do I need to do to improve that? And what's the impact if I don't? So the 2 questions to ask is, well, what's the impact at the moment? So what am I missing? What's happening because of this problem? What is the impact if I don't fix it? And what is 1 or 2 things that I can do that will actually just start to fix it? Because we don't have to solve the problem now. All we need to do is to iterate, to change one thing and see how it works, change another thing and see how it works. It's not about changing everything and saying, oh my gosh, the sky is falling because my discovery call follow-up isn't working, right? It's just saying, okay, what is one thing that I could do to follow up discovery calls? Okay, well, maybe I will talk to my team and get them to do an automation for me, or I'll talk to my team and get them to do a reminder, or I will preset the reminders up and get my team to support. So that's one action. Like, it's not all the actions. So we start with one, because then you just have a list of things that you go through and you prioritize them based on what your business needs now. So I would say discovery for call follow-up for you, because you've got your client books and you're fully booked. So, and your one-on-ones definitely, and your programs are starting to, get booked up now. So for you, discovery calls are really important. But if your invoicing isn't working, that's probably more important than your discovery call follow-up right now. But if you don't touch the discovery call one in 2 months' time, it becomes really important. So it's if that makes sense, it's pulling them out, seeing what the issue is, finding 1 or 2 things to do immediately to help fix it or iterate it, and do that in a priority order of what you need to do that's going to change your business and the stuff that's nice to have. So for example, if my branding says that my logo doesn't match my colors of my website, that's something that needs to happen, and it needs to happen over time, but that's not going to change the business right this second. It's a lot. That's a future business conversation versus discovery calls, invoicing, not delivering product on time, those other things which I hear about all the time. And then they go, oh my God, I'm going to throw the baby out with bathwater. It's not going to work for me. No, we just need to change one thing.
Yeah, that's so good. I was talking with my early morning Friday client just today, and we were talking about CRMs, and she doesn't have the time to delve into an amazing CRM with all the because she's actually traveling on the road for 6 months. And so I said, great, get into MailChimp. It's free. You can set up exactly what you need, do a newsletter once a month so that you at least connecting with those customers, reminding them that you exist, but put the CRM on hold for 4 months. It's just causing you stress, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And you could see the relief come over her, which is like, you don't have to do it all right now.
Exactly.
But I just wanted to do a little reminder for everyone of, you and I say this a lot, which is our top tip, I think, constantly, which is schedule it.
Yep.
So I feel like, yes, I know that the discovery call, it's just sort of come to me recently that needs to be dealt with. So I've scheduled it. We're dealing with that today. So
Awesome.
if I put it in my do first matrix that you taught me so beautifully, and then I make sure that once it's in there, that I then go and make the time to put that in. Yeah. And if that has to be on a Saturday afternoon, so be it. I need to get that work done, and it needs to happen. There's no point just keeping it on my do first, but then putting it on the next day's do first and the next day's do first.
You know the rule, it's 3 days. You have 3, you can move it 3 times. So the way that once you schedule it, you can only move in your diary 3 times. If on the 3rd time, you actually have to ask yourself, how important is it? And if it actually becomes, if it's that important, then you do it that day. You make time that day, because after 3 times, there's no point in doing it. You actually don't prioritize. You're not actually interested in it. And so therefore, I have very hard conversations with clients saying, if you've moved it 3 times, then it's not important, get rid of it. And I watch their face go, no, but it is important. I was like, then why aren't you doing it? Yes. And then we unpack a whole other conversation about why they're not doing that particular task. But often it's because of fear of, if I fix that one problem, I'm going to be overwhelmed because I'm going to be really successful. So if I keep it there, it keeps me in a really comfortable space. So ask yourself, if you're not doing the things that are important, is it because there's a little bit of fear that if you flick that switch and you tighten that screw, then the floodgates are going to open for your business? That can be pretty scary for a lot of people, and they may not even realize that's the block.
Good on you. That is a really, really good one. And I've got a number of clients that I need to mention that to right now. Yeah. That is like
awesome.
Stopping you doing it. That is a very good one indeed. But like I said before, if you've got to schedule it for Saturday afternoon, last weekend I worked all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and I don't do that very often. I don't want to do it. I don't like to do it. And I work some really long days. So doing that at the weekend too was just disappointing. But I knew there was just so many things had piled up. They hadn't been dealt with. So I scheduled my whole weekend. It was challenging, that's for sure. But wow, I felt good at the end of each day. And I was like, whew. So yes, I totally am hearing you on the three times. And for me, that'd been 3 times or more. And it was like, there's no time to get those done. I have no choice. And so what if it's a whole weekend once every few months, then it's not a big deal to actually then take that load off. And I think that's something that we all forget, is that when we haven't got our processes in place, so we haven't got the structure correct, if we haven't got all that going on for us, then it can actually be making other things not work properly either, because it's clogging up our brain, or it's 100%. Weighting on our shoulders.
Yeah. And we also, we catastrophize things as humans. Everything is big, everything is important, everything needs to be done right now. So therefore we actually put ourselves into overwhelm. And it's so easy to do that. So that's where the scheduling piece comes in really well, prioritizing the work that's important to you, scheduling it, and then actually taking a step back and saying, it's okay. If it doesn't get done, it's okay. Unless you're a brain surgeon, unless you're flying a plane, or you're driving heavy machinery, if you miss a step, it's not the end of the world. But what it does is that you can change it if you feel it's important to. And does your client even know? Because that's the other question, is my tip would be, when you're doing these priorities and you see all these things that you believe are going wrong in your business or aren't quite right in your business, more importantly, ask yourself, does it matter to the client? And does it...
Yes, Jenny, carry on. Sorry. And does it?
No, it doesn't matter to the client, because if it's not impacting your service delivery for the client and they still think you're amazing and what you're doing is awesome and it's changing their world, how important is it to fix this thing that you believe should be fixed because it doesn't look like some idea that you once thought it should look like? So we have to also remember that the business that we're doing is not about us, it's about our clients. So everything we're tweaking, everything you're changing, your whole business model is about improving service or delivery for your clients. And how you make, and then you say, okay, if it's because I'm so stressed, because I'm so overwhelmed, I can't deliver, then that's a really critical piece to look at. But if it's just because you don't like that your web page has one of your web pages and your sheets has the order is wrong, or your PDF doesn't look exactly how you thought it was going to look, probably doesn't matter to your client. They didn't know what it was supposed to look like, only you did. So remembering that your business is about client delivery and service, we're just the facilitator for that.
Absolutely. And I know that for next week we had a topic that we discussed, but I wonder if we put that off for another week, because I think what's just has come up right now, and why I chuckled when you were speaking, was because it really made me think hard about this topic, which is when to please the client or when to please yourself. And that balance between, because I've got certainly some interesting sharings around that, and even where it comes into your digital marketing and all kinds of things, and how people respond to things, and so I'd love to chat about.
I would love to do that, because particularly in your world, and we've had this conversation offline so many times about how you're showing up on social media, and we've got colleagues, and I know you have clients who have this kind of way that they believe they should show up online to satisfy customers, but they're really struggling with that connection of that. So I would love to hear your ideas about that. I think it's a brilliant topic.
Is it really what your customers want? I've changed things in my business for my clients because they've complained or something, and so I've gone, okay, so we've gone through this giant process to change something, and then actually none of the other clients like it. It's only just that one. But isn't it funny? It's that squeaky wheel that always gets the attention and gets you to make those changes. And it's like, it wasn't necessarily. So I'd love to have that chat about
let's do that.
What we want and what's right for us versus what's right for others. So great topic.
Awesome. And I want to say it's so good to see. I know that Doz have been sharing. It's so lovely to see so many people watching us on Facebook today too, and making comments. So please make comments, and if you have any questions, let us know. Write them in the comments on the Facebook chat. If you're not on the Zoom, then come in. We can answer your questions here on Zoom, but we'll come back to any questions you place on our Facebook posts throughout the day and over the next coming days. But we'd love to see you on Facebook as well.
Absolutely. So how can everybody get in touch with you, Jenni?
So Elephant in the Room AU on Facebook and Insta are the easiest ways to find me. So it's at Elephant in the Room AU. And from there, you can message me, we can email, you can find my website. And that's where I like to hang out.
Great. And
what about you?
Get in touch with me at hellomedia.team. Easiest ways, jump onto the website and then find all the different things through that, all the socials, and book a discovery call. That'll be fun. I was on a discovery call yesterday afternoon for 2 hours. It's a 30-minute booking, but we were having a ball, an absolute ball.
They are my favorite conversations. I love those conversations.
Yeah, so do I. Luckily, it was the last thing.
An example though of somebody else would tell you. So I know we're signing off, but I have to tell you this. Somebody else who is probably a different consultant or a different coach would say to you, oh, Kylie, you should never run your discovery calls more than 30 minutes. That's not right. That's not the way to run your business. You can't scale that, and give you all the reasons why you shouldn't do that. And then you have that call and it's amazing, and you connect and you find a person, and you find your person who wants to come and join your community. Why is that wrong for you and your business? There's no right or wrong in that position. And I love that, because it's about what works for you. So sometimes they're 30 minutes and sometimes they're half a day, and it doesn't matter, because it's about the connection that we're creating with them. So I love that.
What brings you joy? That's exactly it, isn't it?
It's a really fun way of running businesses.
That's exactly right. So I look forward to seeing you next week, and make sure you come in, share your comments, etc., everyone. And obviously you can listen to it on the podcast.
Yes.
Or watch it on our YouTube channels as well. So happy rest of Reconciliation Week, Jenni. And I look forward to seeing you next Friday morning.
Have an amazing weekend, and thanks everyone for watching and listening today.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.